In this video, I'm going to be roping my horse's feet and explaining why I like to do this. I'll be using my 2-year-old filly for this demonstration, and this is the very first time that I've done this with her. I start out by putting my rope around her pastern, and I'm just going to apply gentle pressure to it until she picks up her foot and brings it forward. Now, I'm going to wait for her to rock the weight forward and weight that foot. And as soon as she bears weight on that foot, I release. So she immediately gets a reward for coming forward. I continue doing this until I get a handful of really nice steps and get her so she's essentially leading by a foot. I keep working at this until I feel like she has a really good handle on it, and I'm very patient and wait for her to sort things out and find what the answer is. My horses have always done best when they're given a lot of little breaks, and I always like to give them time to soak on things. I also make sure to pet them and let them know that they're doing a really good job. After I'm done working on getting her to lead by a foot, then I'm going to move on and work on getting her to lift the foot and giving to the pressure. I really haven't handled this filly's feet a whole lot, so it's important that I make sure that she's going to be really good for the farrier and for when I do need to pick out her feet. I've been picking them up, just not as often as I will be in the future. So she's not had a ton of handling with her feet. So this is a great way to get her really good and used to it. And it's a lot easier too to hold on to a rope versus having to hold on with my hands and have her struggling. When I feel like we've made some good progress on this foot, we move on to the next one. I like to do rope work with my horse's feet because I do hobble all of my horses eventually. And the reason I hobble my horses is because sometimes you just don't have an option to tie them, and I think it's really good for them to just have to stand there. It's also super convenient because you can walk around the entire horse while you're grooming them and saddling them, and I really like that. And some of them, they prefer to be hobbled and standing in the middle of a room versus being tied to a wall or a tree or whatever. So, and some areas you may get into where you need to tie your horse and there's nothing to tie them to. So I feel like hobbling is really good. Doing this work also makes it so my horses get really comfortable with things being around their legs. So for instance, I know I've talked about this in some of my other videos, but I was in a situation once with a really, really good horse when I was younger who got the fork of a tree branch stuck around his leg, and he absolutely panicked. And it was a really scary situation for me. So, luckily I wasn't injured, he wasn't injured, but it could have been a pretty bad wreck. And I feel like the best thing that I can do is do everything in my power to help prevent situations like that in the future. So all this rope work that I'm doing is the very first step to hobble training in my program. And I also like doing this because I feel like it's going to set the horse up for success in the future. If they should get tangled up in something, they learn how to give to the pressure, and it makes it so they don't panic, which is really reassuring. Several years ago, I started a horse for a client, and one of the things that I made sure to do is do all the rope work on his legs and also hobble train him. Well, not too long ago, this particular client sent me some pictures of that horse, and he had gotten tangled up in their fence. And the picture was just of him standing there with the wire wrapped around his legs. And, that could have been a very scary situation because if he had panicked with all that pressure around his legs, he really could have injured himself. But he just stood there calmly while she was able to get him free. The next thing that I'm going to move on to is roping the hind legs. Now, I have my rope just draped over her hip and just letting her get used to it, sort of bump on her hocks and her lower legs as she's moving. Then I'm just going to let her step her left hind leg into the loop, and I'll pull it off of her hip and tighten it up and be ready to work on the hind legs now. I feel like one of the most challenging parts of doing the rope work is actually handling the rope itself. So I've spent so much time fumbling around with my rope and just trying to keep it nice and organized, and then dealing with the lead rope on the horse, and there's a lot to hang on to. So honestly, I would prefer to do this work in a round pen just so I'm not having to hang on to a lead rope and my coils at the same time. Now that I've moved on to the hind, I'm just going to work on getting her to lift her hind leg up with the pressure. So as soon as she lifts her leg up quietly, then the pressure is released, and I let her set it down. After doing this for just a little while and changing the angles that I do it, she's going to get really good at just softening and picking up her foot right away instead of wanting to pull against me. Another thing I really like about doing this is I can be at a safe distance, so when my horse does sort of struggle a little bit and want to pull their leg out of my hands, I am at a safe distance instead when I have this rope attached there, and I can wait until they soften, where if I'm holding on to their leg, there's a good chance that, I'm going to end up having to let it go just for safety purposes. Now I'm going to transition from bringing the horse's leg forward to bringing it back behind. A lot of horses try to back up when I do this, or they struggle a little bit more and end up pulling. Some horses have even taken off forward on me, and that's another situation where it's really nice to have a round pen because they can just kind of keep going forward and the pressure can be held there until they stop. But this mare, she picked this up really quick. This was no big deal, and as you can see the look that we just sort of exchanged with one another, she's just like, okay, I got it, I understand. I feel like getting the horse used to its legs being handled this way is a lot safer and easier for the horse to understand as well, because the pressure is so spot on. So as soon as pressure is applied, they learn to give to it, and when the pressure is released, that's when it's right. Now we're moving into the fourth and final leg. I'm going to do it exactly the same way as I did the other leg, and just kind of put that up over her hip and let that right hind leg slip into the loop. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring the leg forward just like I did on the other side. And as you can see, she definitely has a better understanding of what's going on now and is a lot quicker to respond to what I'm looking for. What I'm going to do now is just take my lead rope and put it right up over her neck. Since she's been doing so good with this, I'm pretty confident that she's just going to stay in one spot, and I'm going to go ahead and work on this without having to deal with holding on to the lead rope. Overall, I'm really happy with how my filly handled all of this rope work. I don't feel like she was stressed at all, and I feel like she just really took the time to soak it in, and she tries very, very hard. The more accepting she becomes of this, the longer I want to start holding her leg up just to help prepare her for when she gets her feet done by the farrier or when her hooves are getting picked out. You never know, she may have an injury someday that requires her to hold her leg up for a long period of time, and I want to make sure that she's very comfortable with this. That concludes our session for today. I hope you found this video helpful. If you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, please consider subscribing to this channel and be sure to turn on notifications. Thanks so much for watching, and thank you for your continued support and comments. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.